place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Hi. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, February 3rd, 2025, and this is episode 999 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Monday show, and apparently I did not unmute my mic. So here I am, guys, a second time through that introduction. Anyway, today we're going to go on a bit of a journey into the past as well as talk about the present as I share what a day back in May 2016 looked like for me when I started this podcast versus today, 999 episodes in. Tomorrow is the 1000th episode, and I'm delighted to be sharing that with Jack Spirko and John Willis on our Tuesday Live, our first Tuesday coffee chat tomorrow. What better way to hit 1,000 than with some friends, right? Anyway, I will also go through our usual segments, Tales from the Prepper Pantry and Operation Independence. The other things I don't have stuff for. So if you have a frugality tip you'd like to share, send it to Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com. Also, hopefully Joe goes shopping again. What happened is Joe retired and now he doesn't go shopping every week. So we haven't seen a shopping report since the last one I read on the 19th of January. So maybe we'll get one soon. It might turn into more of a monthly shopping report, and we may just like pop it in when it's time and not when it's not time. Of course, if you have questions, just put the word question in all caps so I can start it and work it into the show. Or if you have comments, same thing, comments in all caps, then I'll see it with these 52-year-old eyes. Anyway, before we jump into the first segment of today's show, I want to remind you that at Living Free in Tennessee, spring workshop tickets have gone on sale. The link is in the show notes, and I will actually throw it into the chat as well. We've been selling tickets at quite the clip. I opened up a few more this year than usual because Jack Spirko is going to be in the house, and I thought some people were going to want to see him. So you can get those there. And I will also, I'm going to actually put it, see if he wants to talk about it on his podcast as well. But I was holding off on that until everybody from Living Free in Tennessee had a chance to get their tickets. There's been a lot of chatter over on the Telegram group. If you bought your tickets and this is your first year, the email for that is going out tomorrow. I'll send like the first email with sort of all the particulars as well as a link to the secret squirrel ways we talk to each other about ride shares and that sort of thing for the workshop. I also want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that is the Homesteaders Alliance of DeKalb County Seed Exchange and Potluck. That's February 15th, Saturday the 15th, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to get together here at the Holler Homestead, and also we are going to share seeds, like do a seed exchange. If you don't have seeds, you can come take seeds anyway. It's okay. I have a bunch of seeds. So I think it's a perfect time of year to do this. And I had put Homesteaders Alliance and Living Free in Tennessee podcast meetups on hold, which are going to be quarterly this year, just because my own life had a lot going on last year and I realized I couldn't execute it properly. So I've already got a bunch of RSVPs for that as well. The event is coordinated through Facebook right now. I think I may change how I do that, guys, but there is a group on Facebook called the Homesteaders Alliance of not Middle Tennessee, of DeKalb County, and that's where it is right now. I may actually start making the event on the Living Free in Tennessee website, just because a lot of you go there instead, and then link it to that group, because it's like we're hitting the Freedom Cells, we're hitting the Homesteaders Alliance, and we're hitting the Living Free in Tennessee people. And it's sort of like, where do I put this? So, now that I've talked about it out loud on the show, I really think the next one will be on the Living Free in Tennessee website. Whew. Okay. You guys ready to thank some sponsors? That's right. agritaxadvice.com/LFTN is where you can go to get information about agristaxadvice.com's services. That's Matthew Sursley. He works with people to analyze your finances and then talk about different ways you can structure yourself to take advantage of the tax code, and also talks about tracking it just in case anybody takes a closer look at how you're, like what write-offs you're taking. It's perfectly legal. It's just that there's like this much tax code that tells you how to get out of paying taxes, and like this much that tells you how to pay taxes. So it's a really great idea to tap into somebody who has knowledge of the tax code. agristaxadvice.com/LFTN. He also is helping people prepare their annual taxes, but I think he's running out of spots for that. So if you were planning to use him for your tax preparation, it's best to reach out now. Our second sponsor of today's show came up because I was thinking really hard about the last few weeks with the swim spa and how I've had all sorts of electrical issues from the lines. Yeah, that's right. You heard me, from the lines going to the swim spa. And I am delighted to have an EMP Shield installed on that electric service. It's a standalone electric service that covers the roasting shack and the swim spa because they're both businesses. Well, it's all part of one business. And shortly before the new year, I installed I mean a different person for me who's an electrician, installed an EMP Shield in there to protect me from surges in electricity. And we've had doozies of weather-related things and also some things related to how the line was run in the first place. So I'm delighted to have it. An EMP Shield device will help with unpredictable things that happen with the electricity. And if it fails to protect your devices, they will cover replacement up to $25,000. If like lightning strikes the transformer outside your house and it takes out your EMP Shield, you can send the broken device in, which broke, instead of all your stuff, and get a replacement for $50, which I think is a great deal. Anyway, check it out, empshield.com. If you want $50 off, use the coupon code LFTN. Okay, is everybody ready for the first segment today? I know I am. I'm talking really fast, even though I haven't had this cup of coffee yet. This is a great mug that was made for me. It says LFTN, and then it has my name in the back, and it's red, which is my favorite color. I really appreciate this, Rachel. Thanks for making the mug. Anyway, it's Tales from the Prepper Pantry, where we talk about using what you store and storing what you use. And we are at the end of the January Pantry Challenge. How'd you guys do on that this month? Did you get through it? Did you get through January without going to the store? Okay, I have a confession to make. I did the Pantry Challenge with an asterisk. And the asterisk was that, well, I have a subscription to milk from a farmer, and I assumed that was okay. 2, I went to California, although I brought meat with me and ate mostly my own food. While I was there, the family cooked a few meals, and if they cooked a meal, I ate the meal. So I tried to set myself up to not need to go out to eat in California, and that mostly worked, except for one day where poor planning happened for me. And I had been told when you're out of town, like, the Pantry Challenge is off. But I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to be in a place with a kitchen, so I can, bring some stuff with me from my pantry. And I did go to the grocery store one time to get heavy cream towards the end of the month after California, because I knew I wasn't going to have enough in the fridge, and I did not want to be without heavy cream in my coffee, although I do have shelf-stable heavy cream stored, so I could have tapped into those, but I really didn't want to because I only had 4 boxes, and I used one this month before I left town, and they are produced by Trader Joe's, and it's shelf-stable heavy cream, and it's actually a great backup plan to have, and I want to keep that backup plan because it's nowhere near time to use those up. So that is my confession. I did those things. But other than that, we stuck to the Pantry Challenge, and things went great. Especially because I think I'm pairing this time of year with moving more carnivore in what I'm eating. We had everything we needed here. The one weak spot I have, which is the same weak spot I had last time I did this, is that my dairy is not under control. I'm not willing to support a dairy cow or a dairy goat or dairy sheep at this time because that requires milking them. And so I would like to this spring, especially with the adjustment in my schedule and not going out and speaking at as many events, I would like to make more cheese in the hard cheese department to last, more towards the winter. So I'm tapping into like my really good milk source to make the cheese, to have the cheese, and then I don't end up needing to buy as much cheese. It'll cost more to do it that way, but then the quality of the cheese is better, and then I eat less of the good quality cheese than the bad quality cheese, which makes no sense, but that's just, it's like, oh, it has a very strong flavor, therefore I'll have less. It's kind of a weird thing. Anyway, so that's my update. Hopefully you guys had a good month of the pantry challenge as well. Yesterday we had a delicious pot roast from the quarter cow that I bought from Ken Esch this year, and I just put it in my Dutch oven, which is a coated Dutch oven from Lodge. And I had some potatoes left in the fridge that I wasn't going to eat, but I knew other neighbors would eat it, and carrots. So I used those all up just so they were used up, and put onion and garlic powder and smoked paprika and salt and pepper and basil. And then I baked it at 350 it was a larger roast, for about 2 hours. And then 2 hours in, I opened it up, added 1 pint of tomato sauce, homemade tomato sauce, stirred that up, turned the roast over so like the top was the bottom and the bottom was the top, and then put it back in for another hour, and it was delicious. I will say it was a little dry, and I think that's my fault because I think I might have cooked it a little too long by about half an hour. But that's because I was lazy. I went based on the weight on the package for how long it would go without any probes for a temperature. And I, it was still good. And the sauce was delicious that came out of that. So everybody was pretty happy. Nighthawk was kind enough to eat the rest of the carrots and potatoes after everybody was done, just to make sure I didn't have any tempting me in the fridge because I'm off of root vegetables this week. So yeah, that's one of those meals that a pot roast is delicious. It doesn't take very long to prepare and everybody likes it, right? And then it cooks itself all day. You don't have to like sit there and watch it. So that's one of I'm going to be really focused today sort of meals that I will cook. Of course, today what Tactical gets is leftover pot roast in that sauce with shrimp that I had also cooked to go with it. Because what I've learned doing more of the carnivore thing right now, we're in the middle of a carnivore challenge in another channel, is like a good side dish for meat is more meat. So shrimp makes a great side dish. And if I'm feeling like I want more variety with this meal, I'll saute up some shrimp in butter and spice it. And it's something I really like to do. This weekend was on a timer, and this is when I have big things I need to accomplish or want to accomplish around the homestead, around the house. I put a timer on for an hour at a time on different things so that I can make forward momentum without feeling like I have to get the whole thing finished from beginning to end, or else it's not going to be. And some of the things I've been working on is unpacking and reorganizing and purging from having packed everything up in the house for the construction project last year. That's right. I have what I am now referring to as doom boxes. Like I've unpacked the things that I think I need that I've been using for the last 6 months or 8 months or something. What I haven't done is go through the rest of the boxes and see what's in them. So I set a time, and most of them are stacked in my bedroom. So it makes my bedroom into an obstacle course of boxes, and it makes me unhappy. So this weekend, I decided for Selfish Sunday, which is like the day you get to do the things that rejuvenate your spirit, your soul, your body, right? Now, for me, what that meant was 1 hour on that, just go. And I got through 3 of the boxes in 1 hour. And Goodwill is going to love me today, because what's happening is a lot of that stuff I didn't unpack, do not need, right? So that was cool. And then also I spent an hour on tax preparation because I am traditionally late to the table on taxes. And I have a personal goal this year to have everything ready in time. And that means March 15th for my business, April 15th for me. And right now I'm not super panicked about it coming together as long as I spend that time. The business taxes are actually the hardest ones to do, especially because this is my first year working with QuickBooks for this business, and it's been put together by somebody else who was a wonderful help in this regard. But we didn't really get it all integrated till about September, and even then, some things don't automate that I wish did, like the Stripe transactions from Holler Roast don't. I have to like import those once a month, which is a pain in my patoot. But here we are. And that's actually one of the reasons I wasn't using QuickBooks, was because they did not synchronize with the things. Welcome, Rachel. And yes, don't forget to slap that like. So I also hit a seed sorting project where I took all of my seeds that were organized in 2014, and other seeds have been added since then, but I have this really cool organizer, and then I have all these other seeds laying around. And the reason I have other seeds laying around is that the ones from 2014 are still in there. And I just started going through all of them, and I have 2 mason jars. I have a mason jar of early spring seeds and a mason jar of later spring seeds, and I'm going to toss them around places for fun because they're super old. They probably won't germinate, but some of them might, and might as well not waste them. So we'll put them in places and see what grows, but I'm not putting them in my primary garden. I've already got my seedlings started for that, doing another round of seedlings this coming weekend. And then I won't be doing seedlings, I don't think, until March at that point. I'm not sure if I'm going to plant potatoes this year. I've planted potatoes every year and gotten enough for the 2 potato meals I have every year. I have a feeling with my truncated garden this year that's not going to happen. So anyway, that working 1 hour at a time worked great. I had 3 things that I like to put off on a timer on Sunday, and then my reward would be like I get to go work in the yard as a reward for having gotten my seeds sorted or whatever it was. And this weekend was 70 degrees and sunny. So I had a good time just starting to get the hillside garden under control again and working. I got stuff planted in my garden, and I have all of these big pots that I traditionally grown stuff in that I'm not planning to grow stuff in it except for maybe 2 pots, but it's full of soil and I could use the soil in the raised beds, and it's good soil. So I was pouring that through a grate to just in case there was anything like rhizomally in there that I wanted to transplant, because those pots, a lot of them have hops in them and some of them have ground nuts in them. And so I want to pull that out. So that being said, I'm going to have some hops rhizomes if people want to put some in, and about now is a good time to start putting them in. We're going to be moving them around the property so they climb trees. And see how that goes. My original plan with them was to use them as shade on the south facing wall, and that just never worked well. And that's because I think growing them in pots on the south side of the house without an automated watering system, they didn't get enough water. They did give me hops, but they didn't like grow 20 feet like they do. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing where they end up. I know where they should end up, but it's not ready for me to plant there yet. And Tactical has a few places he wants to put them as well. And I was like, listen, the sheep will eat those. And he's like, well, will it kill them? And I'm like, I don't think so, but it might kill the plants. So we'll see where they end up. I mean, they wouldn't be bad just along a fence. It's an amazing vine. And they make really so we don't make beer anymore here, but hops tea is actually pretty good. And then you can make like a hops tea, let it cool. And it's like a cold beverage. If you carbonate that, it's not beer, but it's a beer adjacent without the alcohol. So it's something that Tactical used that a lot his first year to just handle the beer cravings he was having when he quit drinking. So, if you want to talk about recipes, talk to Tactical because he has all sorts of ideas for that. Next up, we have the frugality tip, which I don't have one today. If Margot sent one, it's possible she sent it while I was at my mom's house and is in the backlog of email, but I haven't seen one. And if you want to send one in to share how you're saving money, send it to Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. Speaking of money, I know somebody who is building her YouTube channel, and she has just started, deciding she's going to kind of show how she does things. And that's our friend Kiri Torgler from Thunderhill Farms. If you've been to Self-Reliance Festival, she's the lady with the blue hair. She's an amazing woman. And I've worked with her on Self-Reliance Festival. She's become a friend since, originally meeting her. And she's got a YouTube channel. It's at Thunderhill Farm 38. If you could do me a favor and go give it a follow, check out what she's doing. It'll help her be able to live stream because she's trying to make the benchmark for that. I've also thrown the link in the show notes. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, just go to livingfreeintennessee.com. Show 999. Scroll down, you'll see the link to Kiri's YouTube channel. Next up, we have Operation Independence, where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives here. And I just want to say this, relationships are really important. And I don't mean in order to get what you want, but when we talk about building true community, which is having people's back, like Kiri just said, hey, thanks for sharing that. Well, you know why I shared that? Because I know Kiri. And I realized what she was doing was trying to get some more visibility, and she hadn't asked me to do it. I was just like, oh, I bet it'd be a good idea to do that. I should do that on the show. And so anyway, that's because she's a genuine person who invests in relationships. Well, a lot of that's been coming together for us here at the Holler Homestead in the last few months. First and foremost, Base Camp rented almost immediately after the Eversoles are leaving. Now, they're not gone yet, but they're in the process of moving out. I wanted a little bit of a time in between to do some maintenance things inside as well as outside. And another community member is like, oh, cool, I'll rent it. The reason that happened was relationships. It's because it's somebody like I know them, they know me, and it happened, like I could have put it on the market and I would have put it on the market if there wasn't somebody in the community, but I like to go community first. And I think that's why it's so important to invest in those relationships, because it's not like, hey, I wanted something, so I got it, or she wanted something to rent a house and she got it. No, we both had opportunities and took advantage of them and communicated about them and had enough of a history that we could get it done efficiently. Right. And I think that's going to become a lot more important in the next 5 years as artificial intelligence takes over the world. I'm in the middle of this 28-day challenge, just starting with AI, with what's his name, Joshua Hale, and he'll be on the show like later this month. And I'm doing it because he's going to cover things I have no idea about. First of all, we're going to cover some things I do have an idea about it, but I've made a commitment this year to understand what AI tools are available and how they work better, because just like the Industrial Revolution, what I'm seeing with the AI thing is if we don't learn it, then other people are going to be using it. Our competitors are going to be using it. We're not going to understand, and then we get left behind, right? So really important to have those relationships so you know that it's for real what's happening. Like if you know me, you know I hand roast coffee and ship it to people, which is something that a lot of places could claim in the future. They could even make videos about it. The videos will look really real, and they might not really be doing that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the world sort of adjusts to that situation. Are we going to have like a this is real certification? I don't know. But relationships are important. And on that note, our pasture next door is going through some changes as well. And I'm actually just really happy that we have good relationships with the people who've let us use the pasture so that we were able to talk about it and move forward. And I think one of the foundations of a good relationship that's hard is just saying how it is, or saying what you want, or speaking up when things are not right. And I mean, I kind of thought about this because I had a conversation with somebody this fall who was really unhappy with something. And they're like, hey, I'm unhappy with this. This is what I think the remedy should be. What do you have to say? And I apologize. And I'm like, that's a great remedy. And then we moved on with life and nobody was mad. That's what I mean by relationships are important. Getting to the point where you can have that kind of a discussion without bringing in all this baggage that wasn't really intended to be there, but also where you can feel empowered to be able to say things to people. I think it's really important. And that is a lot of what has helped prosperity here grow over time, over the history of this podcast. And I guess I was thinking about that because guess what the topic of the show, the main topic of today's show is? A day in the life 1,000 episodes in. Because anybody who was here part of the first episode knows that I was not just homesteading all the time when I started living free in Tennessee, right? We had our first episode May 20 of 2016 here. And I've put the link in the show notes in case anybody wants to go back and just listen to that. It was a terrible episode. It had crappy audio quality. I didn't know what I was doing. And for the first time in my life, I was talking to this microphone. Now, it wasn't this exact microphone, but it looked exactly like this microphone. Well, no, not on that first episode, come to think of it. No, I was talking to the computer because I had this microphone from Singing Rock and Roll, but I didn't have it hooked up. I don't want to lie to you guys. So, yeah, anyway, I was talking to an audience that didn't respond to me. We weren't doing it live. It was just an audio podcast. I was closing the door and going blah, 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 blah in this room over there. And it was hard to sound engaging. It was hard to sound. I mean, there was one podcast where I'm like, I'm boring myself. I'm going to change the topic now. And then somebody sent me an email like, that's the funniest comment I've ever heard. And I was like, well, but it was true. I was getting bored. So it was time to change the direction of the conversation, right? So that's just what first episodes are like on podcasts. It's not, you don't usually come out of the dock swinging, right? It's just, you just do what you can do. You go back and you listen to it. You decide what to improve for the next one, and you keep on keeping on. That's how you build. If you are an experienced podcaster, sure, maybe your first podcast on some new series is going to be awesome, but you don't just get there at the beginning. So what started for me as a desperate need to release creative energy because I had a pretty suffocating job, it's become a community of doers, not takers, a source of inspiration for me, and something that's achieving what I tried for 14 years to do in the public policy world. We do more for freedom here and other people's prosperity than I ever did trying to change the law, trying to deregulate government. And I'm very glad that this podcast actually came into my life. And it was literally because I was going to explode from not having a creative outlet. So that was 2016. Our 1000th episode is tomorrow. And we're almost 9 years in now. There's going to be a 10-year celebration next year, I guess. But yeah, we're almost 10 years into this podcast. And man, it's changed a lot since those first few episodes. And so have I. And I hope that 10 years from now, when we're doing this again, that I get to tell you how much more things have changed. And that's life. Life is a journey, not a destination. I like to say, especially like in the My Three Things work we do, it's like you're setting your vision. If you move towards your vision and you discover you don't actually like it, probably should change your vision. So like a vision isn't something that has to be the same for the rest of your life. But if you lock in on the right one, and it is, then it's the journey that you're working on, not getting to an end point, right? That's life. And when we stop the journey, we stop living. So always keep moving, man. Always keep moving. So it all started with that one poorly executed episode. It just started with that single decision and a lot of feedback from y'all. And also encouragement when things got dicey, because that first year I did 8 episodes or 7 episodes. I can't remember. And then there was a lot going on. Somebody in my family needed brain surgery, blah, 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 blah. I had 47 listeners maybe at the time, like nothing. Beth Emily says, I found you around 6:30. Yeah, cool. And I didn't podcast for 6 or 8 weeks. And then somebody asked me, somebody who knew me said, are you ever going to do another episode? Because your podcast was good. And that's when I decided that success meant that I did a podcast every Monday. And in order to do that, I did it recorded at a specific time, finished producing it, and then left for choir. That's literally what we're doing today. This Monday episode, I'm going to finish recording it. I'm going to produce it. And then I'm going to go to choir because I have a bunch of errands to do. Like What's happened since then is usually I have a little break and then I go to choir. Nope, no break today. Like straight on to do all of the things because by gum, I need socks. Anyway, um, and there she went. So today, what I thought I'd say is what was life like for Nicole Sauce at LFTN in 2016? I was on speed dial in my community for pretty much any canning question. So at that point, although social networks existed, most of us were talking to each other on the phone and we knew each other from the farmer's market. And so people would call me when they were like, hey, I'm canning this thing. And I got to the end of it and I discovered I processed it for the right time. Is it safe? And stuff like that. And I had people over to show them how to do things. They had me over to show me how to do things. Like at that point, I was just learning how to process pigs for the first time, as I recall. I guess I'd done a few pigs by 2016, but not to the extent I have now. And now I know that people who do it every day are way better than I am. That's what I know. I was founder and president of a nonprofit organization that managed $500,000 to $1 million in gross revenue a year. And the mission was to equip free market economists in the public policy realm with better storytelling skills and marketing departments, like get them to market their ideas, not just the mathematics behind them. And that's a pretty niche market right there. But that's what I was doing. And I was doing it because I wanted to do my part in helping our world become more free, empowering more people to take ownership for their lives and to realize that overregulating everything actually does not help us move towards prosperity. It does the opposite of that. And it's sort of like when you wake up and realize how corrupt the government is, and you're like, I'm going to go out and vote. I'm going to get other people to vote. We're going to change this. That I was kind of, instead of vote, I was more behind the scenes on the public policy side. And then when I got there, I was like, these people have great ideas, but they make it sound like literally evil, or they make it sound like you stopped listening to the idea because it's too boring. That's changed a lot in that world, by the way, since I was there. There's been some really great people working on marketing and communications in that realm for decades now. So anyway, I got to homestead. I'd been homesteading for 9 years in 2016. I was selling my extra vegetables at the farmer's market. In fact, my best friends in the area I met at the farmer's market because they were doing the same thing. And I was roasting coffee for home use. So heck, why not sell that at the farmer's market too? So somehow I was managing to do my day job. I was managing to run the homestead and spend half of Saturday at the farmer's market during farmer's market season. Honestly, I don't know how I got that done. I look back and I'm like, because I was running a garden. I had chickens. I guess chickens were the only livestock I had. I, liked to go hiking from time to time. I was out of town constantly. I flew for work so much that I had a companion pass on Southwest Airlines. If you want to go see what it takes to get that, just go look it up. It's a lot of flying. And flying is really hard on my body. I have this like new Fitbit and it tells you your like heart rate right now. And my heart rate on the airplane is 20 to 30 beats per minute higher than any other time. And that's interesting because somebody's like, are you anxious up there? It's like, not really, although I don't like being around a lot of people. But yeah, that's just it. John Halfley says, I just get tired listening to her list. I had one rental property in Nashville that, thank goodness, rental properties don't take a lot of time until they take all your time, right? But I had that to manage because that had been my original plan for having ongoing revenue, was to have a series of rental properties so that it was, revenue I didn't have to work really hard for, basically. I was deeply unhappy at this time. I was finding myself in a role where my time was not my own. My primary job was to raise money so I could pay people to train people. And I love teaching, guys. Like that's what I trained to do. That's what I learned to do. And so I would be sending out trainers who weren't as good of a trainer as I am, with the money I raised because I didn't have time to do what I really wanted to do, which was work with the customers of the nonprofit, right? And that was just, it was heartbreaking because I was like, it's not that I hate raising money. It's just that that's not where my heart was. I basically was my own HR manager and operations VP and CFO. And what this meant for me was paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork. And then when I was traveling, sometimes I was working with customers, with the other trainers, and then also I worked with a guy who was a better trainer than I was, Kevin Kerr. He's awesome. Learned a lot from him about facilitations, and it was just that probably at my job, 80% of my time was doing stuff I hate. Anybody who knows me knows I hate paperwork. I don't like to do stuff I hate. So that was the deal. So one time after a trip, like you could not get me out of the garden. I would fly in on Friday night and go straight to the garden. And then, a neighbor would come by and be like, "Hey, you want to go to the bar?" And I'm like, "Nope, I want to sit right here with my feet in the dirt." Right. And I drank too much alcohol at this time. So one of my coping mechanisms while out of town was to emotion drink. And I'd have 2 or 3 wines a night. And that's not super healthy. So a typical day on the homestead started early with some work outside and a cup of coffee. And then I'd transition into computer work and meetings, frantically tossing, something into the laundry or pulling out something out of the freezer for dinner. Or luckily by this time, I think I had an electric canner so I could start the canning and then go work and then stop the canning. But there was a lot of stuff going on. If there was a crisis on the homestead, I was able to, if I was home, stop what I was doing in most cases, unless I had a meeting, deal with the crisis. And then what that meant was a really late night of catch-up work. And there were days off, right? Not ever. The role I was in required that I be constantly available to respond to emails, text messages. And it was so bad that I started turning off my phone at 7 p.m. on Mondays to 9 p.m. because that's when I am at choir rehearsal, by the way. So I'm going to choir rehearsal, turning my phone off. And one of the people who interacted with me actually had the gall to explain to me that that was unacceptable because she needed me to be responsive during those hours. Because she was on the West Coast and her schedule, she was just getting into her stride right about then and needed me to answer questions for her. And that seemed, I remember when she was talking about that, I was like, well, like after choir rehearsal, I can answer, or before choir rehearsal, I can answer. But from 7 to 9 p.m., my phone is off. And the higher ups supported her opinion over mine. And the problem was, although I ran the nonprofit was dependent for maybe half or 3/4 of our revenue from one primary donor, and she was related to that donor. And if you hear some of my early shows about feeling like your life is being lived for you, that was hard. And that was a lot of what was going on there, right? I realized, oh, I don't get to make decisions. And it's not even okay for me to have 1 2-hour segment a week where I turn my phone off. I'm not happy with this. The segment Operation Independence stemmed from that situation because my area of focus for my personal life strategic plan was to have enough local ongoing revenue to support my life. And by which I meant from varied sources, because I realized the real problem here isn't that person. It's that I allowed myself to be in a situation where I'm financially dependent primarily on one source, right? So that particular area of focus over the years has been adjusted to, rather than local, it's regenerative ongoing revenue. And by which I don't just mean money, right? But you guys get the point, right? I was solving for being too dependent on that one source of income, so I could not say no, even when I really needed to say no, even though I was running that organization. And I became really soured on the whole concept of a nonprofit during that time because I saw the inherent flaw in trying to fix the system from within the system, first of all, on the public policy side. And, God bless the people willing to do that. But that is just like a constant not winning battle, right? But also working at an organization where your feedback on success is whether you raise money from these people and get those people to accept your services for free, which then makes it less valuable to those people. So then they don't take it as seriously. And then you had to like convince them to take you seriously. Like I had a lot of good things happen during that time. So don't get me wrong. But that whole dysfunctional thing wasn't how it should be. And it's way better to just like sell coffee. And then if people like the coffee, they buy more coffee. And then if they don't like the coffee, they don't buy more coffee. And I instantly know if for some reason people don't like the coffee because my revenue will go down, right? Like super simple feedback loop right there for me, as opposed to that whole complicated thing. In 2017, I broke out of that system and I still worked for the nonprofit as the president of the nonprofit. And I told everybody working there, including the vice president, I'm going to step down in a year. I'm not taking a salary this year. You can use me for any services you want delivered. Like they're buying my flights if I'm flying. And I will help you with fundraising, but I just want you to know I'm out. And a typical day there was to work for the nonprofit unpaid so that people there could use me for creating the value. They failed at that, guys. You know what that means? The whole purpose of the nonprofit I ran was not. Like literally, it was just me. It's a sign that the nonprofit never really needed to exist, in my opinion. So I would also work. So that year was the year I pulled out all the side hustles. And I was growing eggs and selling them. I was going to CrossFit. I was working at the Center Hill Sun, which was a paper that we started that went out of business. I would sell some coffee orders through the podcast. I had the weekly podcast. That always happened. I had more time for homesteading that year because I was like, hey, if I'm working for free, unless it's like absolutely necessary, I'm not doing it. And then I also took work doing contract work for corporate facilitations. From there, what happened over time is I no longer needed to do the corporate facilitations because I replaced that revenue from Holler Roast. I met, like a lot of you all have helped me along the way. We got the spring workshop going, right? Our first spring workshop was 2017. We had 20 people. So that was, and then we had like a random tent put up on my property. That's all we had. And we had a great time. I started a membership program for the podcast, which at first didn't have the webinars, and the webinars became the thing that you get from the membership process over time. And that's again from feedback from all y'all. But my days changed a lot over that time. And what happened for me was I no longer felt the pressure to have to set an alarm. So I just woke up when I woke up. By the way, that's really early in the morning, as it turns out. And I was able to segment my day out in pieces. And I was able to start saying no to things, something I didn't do a very good job of in 2017 or 18, but whatever. And the businesses started growing, and I would start doing episodes saying like, this percentage of my income is coming from rentals. This percentage of my income is coming from coffee. This percentage of my income is coming from corporate facilitations, and that percentage is like whatever. If you guys are interested, I'll totally do another episode like that. It's changed dramatically since that time. But what's changed the most for me is that my confidence level on my ability to earn money has gone through the roof. When I started this podcast, I didn't believe that I could make enough money on my own to pay for my life. I said I believed it, and I thought I believed it, but deep down inside, I didn't really believe it. And now I know that making money isn't the hard part. It's not the hard part at all. It's keeping the discipline to make the money, right? Making the money is not the hard part. And the most important part is to make sure that I get through a day with myself intact. Like today's a perfect example. I love that I get to control my schedule now. Now I'm living my life now, right? My life was being lived for me in 2016. I am living my life now. My priorities are what happened. What's important to me is health, wealth, and community. So on Saturday, when a bunch of people ended up stopping by randomly over throughout the day, you know what I did instead of all the productivity stuff I had queued up that I was going to do? I went on a hike with a friend to a chimney up in the woods that used to be a cabin, and I put a picture of that on Facebook. I hung out and talked to the neighbors at the pasture who were over because they're going to put in Airbnbs in the area, and so that actually means that rentals near the Hollow Homestead, like vacation rentals, will be a thing. So that's kind of cool. And I got to show another friend sheep, the little baby sheep, and that left me with a whole lot less time to do other things on Saturday. But I got the community, right? So it was fine. And today, when I was looking at the day, I was like, if I'm going to get what's important to me, and which is my daily swim, I need to do it before noon, because if I wait till afternoon, then the podcast is at 2, and then I'm like, my hair is wet, or, like, just got out of the pool, guys, blah, blah, blah. Or I have to go in after the show, which doesn't work with choir. And I also had orders to roast, of course. So I was like, okay, here's the deal. Roast early, reward is swim, and then do the rest of the day. My typical day looks like that. I am still very busy and focused. And when I work, I go into rhinoceros mode and I focus and I get it done. In fact, I'm focusing better now than I ever had because I'm putting my phone away. Like when I roast, the phone goes away. Or when I do this podcast, phone's on silent. The world could be ending right now. And unless y'all tell me in the comments of this live stream, I will not know because I don't have any way to know. Right. And then other times I leave my phone with me. So I have hours set when I'm more accessible and hours set when I'm less accessible. And I have totally cut off responding to things on the weekend if I don't have to. That's the other thing is I may answer something on the weekend, but I will time it to answer during the week because I'm keeping office hours. So it's a completely different world for me. And it's only because you all are not afraid to give me critical feedback when it sounds like I need it. Like I've gotten some really nice notes over the years about, hey, I'm sending you this thing because I don't know that you're focusing well, and I found that time can help me focus. Like the trick where I do an hour here, an hour there, kind of pulled it from that note. And I really appreciate that. And so like critical feedback, most people don't come out and just say I'm a poopy head. Like some of them do, and then that's not critical feedback. That's just angry people. But like people are always so careful giving me critical feedback. And it's funny because in my world, here's what we'd say. Can I give you some coaching? And then you're perfectly able to say, no, not right now, not a good time, not emotionally there. Or, yeah, sure. And then you give critical feedback, right? With a solution in mind. That's the formula I used in the corporate world, like for the people I worked with. Here, it's like, okay, I don't want to overstep, but it's like, guys, can I give you some coaching? Just write, can I give you some coaching in the subject line? And then I'll open the email when I'm ready to, right? Anyway, so that's been really helpful. And just seeing the community grow has made me realize that this idea that we have is way bigger than this podcast. It's way bigger than you and me. The notion that we can preserve what we have romanticized about the 1950s, about neighborhoods and people helping each other. I think humanity has always wanted that. And I think a lot of the time that has happened, and the way we preserve that is we do that for each other. And sometimes there are people who are not nice, who don't do that. Won't work with them, right? But if you just get yourself in a negative Nelly mindset, then you're not going to be able to have that world. The only way to have that world, you don't move to that community, guys. You create that community by tapping into the communities that already do that. Our community does that. TSP does that. SOE does that. That's why I've enjoyed working with, who is it? Tag from Life Done Free. His community is that way, right? Bear Independent, his community is that way. Midwest Preparedness Project, they're that way. Kentucky Sustainable Living is that way. Billy Bond's community is that way. The reason we've all gotten along is like the core of our communities is be a doer, not a taker. Have real community. And so if I would just boil it down into one way my life has changed since 2016, it's community. It's connections. That's what it is. It's having real people whose backs I have and who have my back. And that has been the biggest source of strength as I transitioned into becoming more confident about making my own money. And for those of you who are just starting, all I wish I could do is say it gets better, but actually having that little fear at the beginning helps you make more money. So I'm not sure I would take that away, but if you keep at it, you'll figure it out. I know you will. Anyway, we're going to go on to show 1000 tomorrow. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. That's all available over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Our membership webinar this month is going to be caring for and using cast iron with Nighthawk, and he and I are going to do that together. I think it's February 23rd. Anyway, it's on the website if you go to the event calendar there, and I will put it in the Monday mail, which I also moved to be sent later today so that I can get my swim in. Anyway, guys, with that, go out, make it a great week.